Purdue fans. This is Johnny DeCamp bringing you play-by-play the rousing...
Hi, everybody, along with Ron Kramer, this is Pete Van Wieren welcoming you to Ross-Ade Stadium.
Live from Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana.
It's a football Saturday in West Lafayette, Indiana, and one of the biggest home games in decades.
Boilermakers rush the field. What a night in West Lafayette.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue football and the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today.
Welcome to the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. I'm Corey Palm alongside Tim Newton as we celebrate the 100th season of the home of the Boilermakers by recounting some of the best matchups that have ever happened inside that stadium. A few notes before we get started here today. Number one, this is not a comprehensive list. There are far too many great games for us to have time to go through in this series, so we'll have to be happy with what we get. Number two, we're going to be presenting them chronologically. That's how we're going through these games, because doing a rank order list is, it's a personal thing for each Boilermaker fan, and quite frankly, we don't want to waste a lot of energy arguing over which game should go where.
Your results may vary.
Yes, results may vary. Our results may vary. There's probably a few we could agree on, but we'll probably talk about that down the line. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the game, the one we're focusing on today. Let's go back to October 17th, 2009, when the Boilermakers take down number 7 Ohio State. Tim, the post-Joe Tiller era didn't quite go in the beginning of 2009 like everybody hoped it would. It was year one of the Danny Hope regime, and the Boilermakers got off to a good start with a season-opening win, and then things kind of went sideways.
Yeah, they lost 5 games in a row, and these were two teams coming into Ross-Ade that day that were in opposite directions. Ohio State was ranked 7th in the country. The Boilermakers, after beating Toledo in their opener, were 1-5. They had lost a disappointing game at Oregon. 38-36. It was a wild, high-scoring affair. A lot of fans will remember the game against Notre Dame in 2009, the infamous timeout. Should Purdue have taken a timeout defensively? They did, and it turned out Notre Dame scored a touchdown, and basically on their final shot with a short touchdown pass to Kyle Rudolph. Purdue lost again the next week against Northwestern when they had an opportunity, 1st and goal, inside the 10 with less than 2 minutes to play to get the game won and couldn't get it done. So you have to imagine that the fans coming into Ross-Ade on that day were not very enthusiastic about Purdue's chances. And in fact, if you look at the attendance that day, there were only 50,000 fans at Ross-Ade Stadium, and a lot of them were wearing red that day.
They sure were, and that is evident when you go back and look at game film, when you look at photos from that day. There's a lot of red in that stadium. They weren't real happy come the end, and there was very little red on the field after that game when the loyal home fans got a chance to celebrate on the field with the team.
When you want to pull off a big upset, it helps to get off to a great start, and I'm not sure you could have scripted it any better, and Ryan Kerrigan was a big part of that.
He absolutely was. Ohio State gets the opening kickoff. Snap 1 for the Buckeyes offense was a tackle for loss from Ryan Kerrigan, and snap 2 was a strip sack. Kerrigan had, he had a huge day. We'll get into that. By the way, he's joining us later. Don't know if we mentioned that, but special guest Ryan Kerrigan will discuss this game with us at length later on in this episode. But yeah, it turned the ball over on Ohio State's second snap. Mike Neal with a fumble recovery. The offense goes down, scores a field goal. The Boilermakers go up 3-0 early, and sort of set the tone for how the afternoon was going to play out.
Now, the Buckeyes did score on their ensuing possession, so they got right back on the board and took a 7-3 lead, and you thought, well, maybe this is the start of it. That was the only scoring Ohio State had in the first half, and Purdue was able to keep in it defensively, and Carson Wiggs gave them the lead late in fact, the last play of the first half with a 55-yard field goal.
55 yards, and Wiggsy had a monster leg. And they were not shy, especially in an end-of-half situation like that, of, okay, give him a shot at a long attempt, and he paid it off. 55 yards.
Yeah, and you wonder what the moods were like with both teams in the locker room. Ohio State came in a prohibitive favorite, and now all of a sudden they're down 9-7 to this upstart Purdue team, and the Boilermakers, we'll talk to Ryan Kerrigan about this later, about the mood of his team going in and whether it had the confidence going into that second half.
It didn't get better for the Buckeyes in the second half. Not only could their offense not do anything except for turn the ball over in the third quarter, but the Boilermaker offense finally got on track. Joey Elliott to Aaron Valentine twice for scoring passes, and the home team jumped out to a 23-7 lead.
The Boilermakers used the tunnel screen extensively, and I know that at times that came at the chagrin of some Purdue fans because it was a big part of the Purdue offense under Danny Hope. But it was very successful that day. Aaron Valentine coming from the outside in and got to the house a couple of times, and the Boilermakers took a big third-quarter lead.
Head to the fourth quarter, up by 16. The Buckeyes kick a field goal, pull it within 13, and Wiggs answers right back with his fourth field goal of the day to extend that lead back out. When Ohio State was finally able to punch it into the end zone again and then convert a two-point conversion about halfway through the fourth quarter, it was kind of okay. They're staying alive. They clung to that life for a little bit. It didn't help when Purdue went 3 and out on their next possession, and the Buckeyes were driving once again, looking to tie the game up late in the fourth quarter.
And then the Ryan Kerrigan and the Purdue defense made another stop, got the ball back to the offense, and Ohio State basically handed Purdue the game late with a face mask call on a third down play when they had stopped Purdue short of a first down, and the Boilermakers were able to take knees from there and run out the clock and bring the fans that were at Ross-Ade Stadium that day down to the field for a happy conclusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned it takes getting off to a great start. It takes, let's be honest, some mistakes by the favored team. Every single upset you'll see will have them there, and that face mask certainly qualifies for that. Plenty of heroes in this game.
Oh, lots of them.
We mentioned Wiggs' 4 field goals. He was absolutely stellar. He got some national recognition coming out of that game as well. Offensively, Joey Elliott, 280 yards, 2 scores, just 1 interception. He also ran for about 30 yards. So that's a really good day for Captain Snidbit, as we like to call him around the office. There's a long story there. I won't get into it, but Joey had a nice game. And let's take a minute to talk about Joey Elliott.
Yep.
His career at Purdue. He had a great senior season. Unfortunately for him, that was the extent of his career at Purdue, was that 2009 season.
He had been playing behind a lot of guys, waited his turn, and when the lights weren't on, you look that day, he was 31 of 50, 281 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and made big throws. Keith Smith, great possession receiver Purdue had. Unfortunately, his career was cut short a little bit by injury, but 12 catches for 125. And Aaron Valentine, who probably was as valuable to Purdue as a punt returner, had a great game receiving that day. 10 catches, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, plenty of offense that day, and they had some support from the defense as well.
Yeah, Kerrigan was okay that day. 5 solo tackles, 9 total tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 strip sacks, and 1 fumble recovery. They kept him on scholarship the following week.
Right. They decided he could have 2 desserts that night after dinner. No, Ryan Kerrigan, National Defensive Player of the Week after that, I believe, came to be known internally as Superman that week. Famous press conference moment. Coach Danny Hope talked about his Superman moniker. I believe it was that following week. He was all everything and very important. He wasn't alone out there.
Yeah.
His defensive front for that year was as good as any, maybe in the history of Purdue football.
And, that win for Purdue that day really boosted them for the second half of the season. They started the year 1-5, but finished with a 4-2 record, including their first win at the Big House in about half a century, and Ryan Kerrigan made the winning play on that one. We'll talk about that one a little bit later on. But this was an Ohio State team that was really good. They did not lose another game. They finished 5th in the national poll. They beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl. So this was a really, really good Buckeye team that the Boilermakers handled that day.
The same Oregon team that Purdue nearly beat in Autzen Stadium back in week 2. So, it was a very good Ohio State team. It was a very good day for the Boilermakers, and, that's why it's on our list of Ross-Ade's greatest games. We're going to step aside just for a brief moment, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Superman himself, Ryan Kerrigan, on the show right after this.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue football. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today.
We are joined now by Superman himself, Purdue Athletics Hall of Famer Ryan Kerrigan. Ryan, great to see you. Obviously, we're talking about the 2009 Ohio State game, this episode of the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. How much of that game do you recall, and what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Of course, the first thing that pops into my head is just the fans rushing the field after the game. That's something I always dreamed about growing up as a kid, watching college football, especially watching Big Ten football growing up in Big Ten country. You always dream about being a part of the winning team when your fans rush the field. And so to have that actually happen, against a team, at number 2 at the time, I believe Ohio, or what were they, number 2 or number 7?
Number 7.
Yeah, they were 7.
That's right, 7. Yeah, they were number 7, and it couldn't have been a better day. It was awesome. We were struggling mightily going into that game, and then to have the game turn out the way it did was incredible.
Do you remember much, Ryan, leading into that week? You were 1-5. You mentioned they were ranked 7th in the country, and you'd had some tough losses the previous weeks. Was there any feeling that maybe this is the week that things will turn around?
Well, I remember our defensive line coach, Terrell Williams, at the time, he really hammered the point home that though Ohio State was ranked 7th, though we were 1-5, he loved the way our defensive line matched up against their offensive line. And he made us believe. He made me believe throughout that week that, that if we did what we were supposed to do up front, that we could and would win the game. And he was right, because it felt like collectively we played really well up front that game. We were able to control line of scrimmage and affect Terrell Pryor in the pass game, and so yeah, it sounds weird to say that being 1-5 that we felt confident going into the game against the number 7 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, but we kind of did, at least on the defensive line.
Well, I'll tell you what, you set the tone very early in that game. Ohio State got the opening kickoff. On snap 1, you took down, I think, Brendan Sane for a tackle for loss. And on sack 2, you sacked Pryor, stripped him, and Mike Neal recovered the fumble, which the offense then turned into points. I mean, there just could not have been a better start to the game. Less than a minute in a game where you kicked off, your team was up 3-0.
Yeah, it started off as well as it could have. I mean, I still remember that sack fumble, because I remember feeling the action of the offensive line going away. They're booting to their left, our right, but the tight end was hanging on me, trying to pin me down. I was like, okay, this is a definitive boot key, and so I just tried to hit it upfield vertical the best I could, cut off Terrell Pryor, before he got to his launch point, and was fortunate to do that. Got the ball out, and Mike got it back, and then we turned it into points. And that's, like you said, for a team kicking off to start out with a 3-0 lead that early in the game was huge.
They bounced back right after that field goal that you kicked and scored a touchdown, but you were able to hang with them for the first half, and Carson Wiggs hit a big field goal, long field goal going into the locker room to give you a 9-7 lead. Do you remember what the feeling was like at halftime in that game?
Well, I think the belief that we had that Coach Williams had instilled in us on the defensive line, that started to really kind of percolate more in our minds. Like, okay, he's right. We can hang with these guys. We can beat these guys. And the old saying goes, the more a team can hang around, the more a team can, kind of stay in the game, an underdog team like we were that day, the better chance that we have of winning. And, for Carson to boot one through from that far away, going into the locker room to give us a lead, that was definitely a shot in the arm going into the half that, really propelled us throughout the second half.
Second half saw the defense, a couple interceptions. Anytime you can force turnovers and really, have those sudden changes, it can lead to good things. It also saw the offense finally reach the end zone a couple times. Joey Elliott to Aaron Valentine touchdowns, put you guys up big headed into the fourth quarter. And I imagine you've been talking, repeatedly about having that belief. Well, with 15 minutes to go, you guys 16-point lead and just had to be flying high on the sidelines.
Yeah, at that point we were. I mean, our adrenaline, our confidence was sky high, and we're just thinking, okay, defensively, let's just take it one possession at a time, one stop here. Let's get one stop here, and then next time we go out, let's get one stop here, and just offensively, it's just keep moving the change, keep eating away at that clock. They can't score if they don't have the ball, and so it was a true team effort that day, and so many people contributed in such big fashions. You mentioned Aaron Valentine. Him and Joey Elliott were so lethal on that little tunnel screen that they perfected during 2009. Man, just again, so many key contributors that day.
When you play a game against a team like an Ohio State or a Michigan, and you hang with them, and you beat Michigan later on in the year in the Big House, can you sense panic on their side that, hey, this is a team that we should be controlling, we should be beating, and yet they're hanging with us? Did you sense any of that from Ohio State in that game?
I would say it wasn't as much panic as it was. I think we instilled doubt in them. When we had that as momentum built in the latter part of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, we felt like we were the favorite in that game. We felt like the roles had been reversed, that we were the favorite, and that they were now the underdog. And you could. I know I could feel that a little bit on the field, and that was a really good feeling to have, being where we were at 1-5 and where they were at number 7 team in the country.
I know you mentioned earlier, Coach Williams, and thinking that your unit matched up really well with their offensive line. Let's talk for a little bit about that defensive line you guys had that year. Kawan Short in the middle. You had Mike Neal, who we've already talked about. I mean, that's almost 30 years of NFL experience and a handful of Pro Bowls just between the three of you, to say nothing of the other guys that were contributing on that team. Like, looking back on that group, that was a heck of a collection of talent.
It really was. It's pretty cool to look back and think about a lot of the guys we had come through our D-line room. The year before that, we had Alex McGee, who ended up being, I believe, a third-round pick of the Buccaneers. And then, Mike, a second-round pick of the Packers. KK, second-round pick of the Panthers, who, was a hell of a player on their Super Bowl team a couple of years back. Mike won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. It's pretty cool to think back on the talent we had in that room. And it was just so gratifying to see that, our defensive line, have the type of day that we had against Ohio State, because we really needed it that day, and we needed it in a bad way, and we got it, and it was great to see.
You talked about before as we started about fans rushing the field. When fans rush the field, what do you as a player try to do? Because clearly you want to make sure you don't do what Tim Stratton did in 2000, that is lose your helmet in the melee. And how do you handle when thousands of people are running at you?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways. I mean, unfortunately, in 2007, my freshman year, I had that experience at Indiana, but in the other way, when you're in the losing end of it, and that was it's frustrating and it's not a good feeling when you're on that end of it. But when you're on the winning end of it, like we were, in 2009 against Ohio State, it's just, you're just trying to just soak up the moment, just be there with the fans who stayed there and supported you, who came out and supported a team that was 1-5 and really struggling, who going into the game you probably thought had no chance of being on the same field as Ohio State, and so you just wanted to soak it in with them. Then I found my family and my friends that were that were in the game at the game. It's really awesome to see them on the field, give them a hug, and kind of participate in the chaos with them. So it was all I had dreamt it would be. I'll say that.
We're going to talk about sort of where you went from there in just a little bit, in just a moment. Before we get away from the game, I want to, when I think of your career, I think of the game against Michigan the next year where you were Denard Robinson's worst nightmare. And what I really think of, the play that comes to mind, is the 21-yard sack of Pryor, where it was late in the second quarter. You get a straight line rush at him. It just blew past the tackle. taken for a 21-yard sack, strip the ball, recover the fumble. That play will always be ingrained in my memory of Ryan Kerrigan's career at Purdue. What do you remember about that play?
I remember we had a line stunt on, and so I was, slanting from the C gap to the B gap. And, fortunately I got kind of an aggressive set from the left tackle there. And so that, allowed that B gap to open up pretty good for me. And so I just hit it, tried to pry him open the best that I could, and just got vertical. And, with, being a longer developing screenplay, Pryor's holding on the ball, a little bit, longer than I'm sure that, he would have liked to. Swatted at the ball, fortunate to get it out, and it just took a friendly little hop right back up into my arms. And I still remember the video and seeing, Chris Carlino, Jason Warner all around me celebrating while I'm, got the ball. And it was just like, I wish I could bottle up that day and like the feelings that I had that day against Ohio State and just always have that with me. Cause that was just some like moments like that were just unbelievable. And just, man, you just wish you could relive them over and over.
Well, you did get to relive it over and over a little bit later that year because you had the big clinching sack in the game at Michigan, 38-36 win, and you sacked their quarterback on a 2-point conversion that would have tied it. The difference, though, you were playing on the road. Was it more fun to win a big road game or a big home game?
I would say winning the Ohio State game was more fun, getting to celebrate with, the fans and, who were there to support you and whatnot. The Michigan game was just a different beast, though, because, we were down in that game, and we hadn't won in the Big House, I think, since like 67 or something. And so for us to, to go in there and beat them, that was amazing. And it was a total team effort because we gave up a lot of points defensively, but we got timely stops. We had a clutch surprise onside kick by the special teams that got us a key possession back, and our offense scored 30-some points. So it was like really a total team effort, and that's what made it so satisfying, was that everyone was involved and was such key contributors.
First round draft pick the next spring after being a consensus All-American year at Purdue. Your senior year, I know that senior year on the field as a team didn't quite go how you hoped, but your NFL career, I don't think probably could have been drawn up much better. A ton of success in Washington. Finished your career as the program's or the organization's all-time sacks leader, which is saying something for a storied program like that. What are you most proud of your NFL accomplishments?
I would say that I was fortunate I was able to play as long as I was, and I was able to play at a high level for a long time, and that frankly I was able to stay as healthy as I was, generally speaking. I'll say I was available to play. I wasn't always healthy, but I was available to play a lot of games. And when I sit back and think about my playing career, it really is it's still almost hard to believe, that I got to live it because I had so much fun doing it. And it just, like I said, couldn't have drawn it up any better. It just, obviously would have liked to have experienced, a Super Bowl, some playoff success, but, that's not what everyone doesn't get that. And that's why it's sweet, I imagine, when you do get it. But, I just, in terms of, being able to play for 11 years and, have as much fun and meet as many great people as I was able to, it was a dream come true.
The guy that brought you to West Lafayette, Joe Tiller, always said that the greatest ability a player can have is availability. And you just talked about the durability, 139 straight games. What was your off-season regimen like that allowed you to stay healthy and be able to perform at such a high level?
Well, I got good advice from a couple of veterans when I was early in my career. And one of the things they talked about was taking care of your body the same way in the off season as you do in the in season. Because in the when you're in season, you're hyper focused, you're constantly doing different treatment, different recovery protocols to make sure that you're feeling tip top for not only games, but for practice. But some of the vets I had talked about doing that every day in the off season, so that when you're off season training, you're feeling good for your training. So you're really progressing and not just working out to check a box, but actually working out and training to get better. And so I really I was very serious and very, structured with my off season, and in terms of, okay, like, yeah, I know it's mid-February, but I got to eat like this. I got to train like this. I have to, sleep like this, recover like this, because if this is the edge that I need to get over the guy that I'm going against, then that's what I have to do. And that's one of the things I try to impart on a lot of the guys that I coach now, is that you kind of have to have a little crazy to you, in the sense that, like, you're gonna do whatever it takes to beat the guy across from you. And a lot of the things sound a little, like I said, crazy and a little nuts at times, but for me, that was my difference between success and not success. So that's how I approached the game.
Tim mentioned Joe Tiller. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but you came in, 2006-07 was your freshman year. You got any Joe Tiller stories for us?
I got one. I'm not totally comfortable sharing, but he was funny, and I think one of the things that really, it was imparted on me, was the relationship he had with, like, the older guys, like the fifth-year seniors, the Dustin Kellers, Stanford Kegler, of the world, guys like that. That, like, the banter that they would have it just would crack me up. I mean, they'd come into a Sunday meeting after the games, and he just would, they'd be, going back and forth about who knows what. But it just was, I don't know, it's little things like that that I remember with Coach Tiller. And he was always such a tremendous supporter of me. Even after I had left Purdue and was, in the NFL, I'd get a letter every so often from him just saying how proud he was. And I kept all those letters, because that was pretty damn cool. I mean, to think about all the players that he's had come through the program, both, at Purdue and when he was at Wyoming, and that he, remembered me and was thinking of me and took the time to handwrite me. It wasn't like he was sending a quick text message. He was, handwriting me a letter. And so, he was a special guy.
You mentioned coaching. Now you're an assistant defensive line coach with the Washington Commanders, and one of the guys you work with on that staff is another Purdue legend, Jeff Skanina. Tell us a little bit about what he's like on the field and your relationship with him.
We have a very good relationship. I mean, there's a lot of commonalities with us in terms of, both Midwest guys that went to Purdue. He's always quick to remind me that he's the career tackles for loss leader, and that I wasn't able to eclipse his mark. But no, he's awesome. He's awesome to work with, because he's intense. He cares about the guys. He cares about what the product that they're putting on the field. And he's been a great, like I said, great guy to work with.
You had a pick 6 against Eli Manning in your first pro game. You had a sack and a half against Tom Brady in your final pro game. Sandwiched around that was a lot of really important moments. You sacked Drew Brees, not once, not twice, but a handful of times in just a few matchups with the Saints. Is there any single moment that really stands out to you from your NFL days?
Definitely the pick 6, my first game, was really cool, because I had always wanted to score in college. I always wanted to score a touchdown, and I never did. And so when I got to my first NFL game, that was a little bit surreal. I didn't even know what to do when I scored, but I think of a couple different plays that stand out. In 2016, I got a sack fumble on Carson Wentz when in the last minute of our game against Philadelphia, and we were fighting for our playoff lives at that point. And if we lost that game, we were pretty much doomed. And they were driving down and had a chance to score and win the game. And I got a sack fumble that we recovered and we were able to win the game. So that one is pretty cool. And then I got a sack fumble on Dak Prescott in 2018 late in the game that sealed a big home win against Dallas, which Washington fans, they absolutely despise all things Dallas. So that was I know and so I know how meaningful that was to the fans. And so those couple of things were super meaningful to me as far as on the field plays.
We should mention a little bit about the family life. The reason you're talking to us from your car today is your daughters are taking a nap right now. Well, how is the family and how busy do they keep you?
Oh, they're great. I mean, being a father is just, it's the best. It's the best thing in the world. I mean, I love my kids more than anything. They're fun. They're truly, in my opinion, objectively funny kids. They tell funny jokes and all that. And I just if I get any free minute, if I'm not working, I'm with them. And that's I don't want to have it any other way. And but yeah, you got to be in the car right now because it's nap time. And if Dad's talking too loud.
Three girls, Ryan. What's the age? I'm sorry. 3 girls. What's the age range?
My oldest just turned 4. Number 2 is 2 and turns 3 in the fall, and then my youngest just turned 1. Yeah.
It's only going to get more fun from here, let me tell you.
Yeah, we're definitely busy right now, but it's the best kind of busy.
I do have one, and I've been saving this question for the end because it's really important to me. Everybody in Washington, I'm sure, knows Ryan Kerrigan, the football player. Do more people know you as NASA technician Garber from Sharknado 3?
I would say that's probably my calling card. I mean, when people see me, they don't say, "Oh, there's the guy that played football." They're like, "Oh my gosh, you were in Sharknado 3," and I'm like, not only was I in it, I was no, but yeah, that was fun. No, that was fun. I mean, that was I tell you what, if anything, being in that Sharknado movie gave me such a great appreciation for filming a movie because I was there for 6 hours filming that scene, and if you blinked, you missed my scene. Thinking my God, I'm thinking with the time I was there, I was like, man, I was hoping for a little bit more FaceTime than that. But no, it was it's definitely a cool blip to have a little on my radar to be able to say, yeah, I was in one of the Sharknado movies.
When you show your girls down the line, you're going to be okay. Don't turn away. Don't turn away. Here I come. Here, no. Oh, you missed it.
It'll be like that. I'll never forget watching the movie when it came out and just on pins and needles anticipation, and then it just came and went like that, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I guess that was fun.
Well, I'm saving this one till the end too. We asked you about a Joe Taylor story. I've got a Ryan Kerrigan story I tell people whenever they ask me who my favorite Boilermaker is, and it's not a football-related thing. You might not remember it. Your freshman year, you did a job shadow with the strategic comms office here, and we didn't have a lot for you to do, so you went on a couple video shoots with me. And we kind of, I don't know, we went and shot something at golf or baseball or whatever. And I remember as we were walking back to our offices in Mackey Arena, we ran into Dave Shondell. And as a freshman here from Muncie, you knew who Dave Shondell was. You were kind of a little bit awestruck by, oh, there's Coach Shondell. I know him. He's a big deal. And I'm like, dude, you're Ryan Kerrigan. You're a big deal too. That was a fun moment for me, but it's kind of a fun little story I've shared with some people. And like I said, I doubt you remember it. It's a blip on your radar, but.
Well, no, I mean, it is funny to say that, I was, awestruck by Coach Shondell because I grew up with him. Like, me and his son Kyle were really great friends, went to the same elementary school growing up. And so he was, definitely always an authority figure to me. And so I remember when he got the Purdue head job, I was like, wow, he's a star now. I mean, that's really cool. To see him, see him like that. And so like I was like a little bit it was awesome to see him, on campus, just because it was a little bit of a surreal moment growing up with him as my friend's dad, and then to now see him at the helm of Purdue volleyball, which by the way he's just absolutely crushed it there. And so it was so cool to see him. I'm proud of him, proud of the way that he's gone from Muncie Central and killing it there to going to Purdue to killing it there.
Well, I know we're all real proud of you as well, Ryan. I can't think of a better way to leave this conversation than that right there. Tim, anything else you'd like to throw?
No, just be really quiet, Ryan, when you go back inside, because you don't want to wake the girls up. You don't want to wake girls up and kids up early from naps. That's a lesson you learn very early in your parenthood career.
Oh yeah, our second has taught us that. Yeah, if you wake her up, then there's hell to pay.
Ryan, thank you so much as always for your time and all the great memories you've given so many Boilermaker fans over the years. We really have enjoyed watching your career and continue to be excited to see what you've got next.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.